Guys, it's Reese with Enviro Decon. I'm here at a home in Portage, and we're going to be looking at the attic today. A realtor called needing an inspection of the attic because they're trying to sell the home and it's currently pending. The inspector found mold, so we're just going to go up there, see the extent of the mold contamination, and then see what issues caused it and how it's going to be addressed. So you're going to go on a journey with me up to the attic, and we're going to check it out. So I got my ladder, my mask, because you got to be safe when you go up there. And something when I go do these attic inspections, one of the first things I notice when I'm walking up to a home is I look at the way the attic is vented. So I'm looking to see if there's soffit venting. I'm looking to see if there's a ridge vent, gable vents, and what kind of is going on from the outside. So as I'm walking up here, I see there's a gable vent. And with a gable vent, air is supposed to come in one end and leave out the other. If you're a home inspector, these ladders are a must.
Short and stubby.
Well, short, small, lightweight, but they also can extend very far.
Is this the one you left at a job? At an inspection?
Sometimes when I open these up, a lot of insulation falls out. Not too bad here. All right. See what I mean? Like, this thing is really easy to use. Yes. Quite versatile. All right. You're gonna need me to bring that camera in there?
Screen facing towards you.
All right, so if you notice there's some staining on the sheathing there. It looks like they got a ridge vent in place as well as gable vents. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the flashlight, and if I see light coming through the ridge vent, it means the ridge vent is open, and you should see a faint glow of light. If there's no light, it means the ridge vent is not installed properly. Okay, so I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but there is a faint glow through the ridge vent. No light coming from the soffit venting. Over here, there's a gable vent. Gable vents and ridge vents should not be together. So what I'm going to determine is if the soffit venting is working or if that's closed off. The soffit venting appears to be blocked off by a piece of wood. So there's no air coming up through the soffits. So because there's no soffit venting, the ridge vent that they installed a couple years ago is not going to be working because those work in conjunction. There is pretty widespread mold growth. I have seen a lot worse, but okay. So ultimately what needs to happen is this ridge vent needs to be closed off since it's not even working. So that can be closed off from the inside. And in order to increase ventilation and cross-flow ventilation between the gable vents, we're going to install a solar-powered gable vent fan, and that's going to draw in more airflow to create cross-flow ventilation. We'll need to treat the sheathing, the insulation, and the trusses with our product, Decon Bio-Oxygen. It's non-toxic, 100% biodegradable. We'll kill the mold on the surfaces, penetrate the wood, kill the root of the mold, and then be able to fog the attic space. And that fog is going to land on all the insulation and kill the surface contaminants such as mold, spores, mycotoxins, you name it. So our guys are going to have a fun job because it's kind of a very narrow attic up here.
Yeah. I know you sort of explained it, but why wouldn't a traditional baffling system work in this particular home?
So for those of you that don't know, baffles are either plastic, styrofoam, or cardboard inserts that go right over the soffit venting and rest. That creates a pocket right above the soffit and rests in the sheathing. That needs to have open soffit venting in order for the air to flow up through, go through the baffle and up to the ridge vent. Because the soffit venting is blocked with that wood board, there's not proper air intake, and so the ridge vent's really not doing anything. So we're going to close off that ridge vent, and then we're going to add a fan to the gable, so that's going to create more airflow.
And that airflow prevents mold growth from happening because it controls the humidity and temperature into the attic?
Exactly. So because the attic is the hottest place in the home where the hot air rises to, there's a lot of moisture up there, especially in the summer months. And so if there's not airflow, that condensation from the humidity just sits there and has nowhere to go. And under the right conditions with wood material plus condensation, you're going to get mold growth. Okay, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the first thing I noticed was that the ridge vent was installed properly, so that's good. The problem is, and we're seeing this a lot lately, is that the soffit venting is completely blocked with a wood board on both sides. And so without that air coming up through there because of the wood, the ridge vent's not even able to work.
Okay.
And so there's a gable vent. The gable vent's fine, but clearly this mold is from many years ago. So the gable vent before probably wasn't adequate as it is. What we can do is close off that ridge vent and then put in a gable vent fan on one of the gable ends so that it actually pulls air in and sends it across the attic so that it creates constant airflow.
Okay.
So that way, you know, the future homeowner's not going to have to worry about the mold coming back.
So I need an estimate for that, but they're specifically only asking us to mediate what's up there.
Yeah.
So is there live mold up there now?
So to determine if it's live or not is kind of hard to do without doing an air quality test.
Okay.
The short
there
answer is
something we can do to treat it and say, okay, whether it is or not, we can spray it with this and then it'll be dead. Now, if you want to, here's the next step, because I think my sellers will only be willing to do the step one on this one. Is my
okay.
guess.
No, I hear that. I think it's the best interest of both the seller and buyer to make sure that not only the mold is sprayed, but that the ventilation is fixed, because we can't give a lifetime warranty without guaranteeing the ventilation is fixed.
Yep.
And I think you'd be surprised at how inexpensive installing one of those solar powered gable vents is.
Okay.
So we can do the 2 gable vents. We're going to replace, we might not need to replace one of them, probably just on this end. We can just do the solar powered one.
Okay.
That's probably about $500.
Okay.
And then the treatment up there wouldn't be too bad. That'd probably be about $2,600, $2,700. So you're looking at about, you know, $3,200, $3,300 to treat everything, fix the ventilation, give the lifetime warranty, and then make sure that the buyer, because if the buyer isn't guaranteed that the mold's not going to come back, they might have a little, you know, they might be apprehensive about that. So I think for the seller, even though it might be a little more expensive, as a company, we don't just treat it. We want to make sure that it's just all the way around taken care of.
Okay.
And I think that cost, that's an average cost of probably a typical attic remediation.
That's about what it was last time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the next question is, if they like the price, when do they want it done?
We've got a couple weeks. But we can always, I mean, if it's something you can't get done prior to closing, it's always something we can have a check cut at closing to you guys.
For sure.
And the buyer, and then I wonder if there were ever even soffit vents in. Because when the house was built, they wouldn't have done a ridge vent with soffit vents.
Right.
They would have done just the gable vents and called it good, and maybe some box vents up there, you know, can vents up there.
Right.
So my guess is this is purely aesthetic. That they didn't even cut holes so that they could get ventilation.
I would agree.
They just put these up when they sided the house. They didn't really put them up for ventilation. They just put them up for
just for looks.
Yeah.
Or maybe with the possibility of opening up those boards at some point in time, you know, drilling holes in the boards.
Yeah.
But that route would be a lot more expensive and time consuming to take off the soffit venting.
100%.
I
totally agree.
But yeah, so.
But I'm just, when you said that, I thought, I know exactly what happened. They sided it, and they didn't, you know, they put the vented soffit panels in there, but it's not vented because they never cut holes.
Right. Yeah, let's just walk around real quick and look.
Like the other one, what happened, the last house you did for me, what happened is they just blew the insulation in and covered it up.
Yeah, that happens too.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, for sure. They don't block off those soffit vents, and that blown in just clogs it up. So yeah, I mean, it looks like there would be good soffit venting, but as soon as I went up there, turned off my flashlight, didn't see any light coming through, and then I saw the board, I knew that was the case. So we got that gable vent there. That's probably fine to keep. Okay. Let's go in the backyard. Well, we're gonna have to go through this bush.
Yeah, we can walk around, doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I don't mind walking through.
Okay, so this is the area where, Evan, if you want to look at the gable vent there, that's where we're probably going to install that solar-powered gable vent fan. Because right now, there's not a driving force that is going to, except when it's windy. When it's windy, wind will blow in there, but if we put a fan in place of that vent, it's just going to draw it more naturally. But the problem with having gable vents and a ridge vent is that as soon as that air goes in, it's going to go straight up to the ridge vent and not go all the way across.
Okay.
Which is why that ridge vent needs to be closed off.
Okay.
If the soffit venting was open, I would say close off the gable ends and allow the ridge vent to do its thing. But as we've established, that's not an option.
Okay. Well, the next question is, let's go back around the front. Let's go around this one.
Okay.
I'm thinking, what about this attic?
Yeah. Is the access to that in the garage space?
Yeah, and if we should at least look up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be thorough.
I don't notice as much mold above the garage in the garage attics, but it always could be the case. Was there a price point that your sellers were hoping for, or trying, or saying, you know, if it's above this, we're definitely not going to do it? Or
I wish I knew. You know, I don't know. I just, as a general practice, prepare people that you're gonna have probably, you know, on average we end up spending $500 on repairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I just try to, you know, get them ready that there's gonna be something. If there's a home inspection, there's always something.
right.
You know, whether it's this one has got a couple GFCIs, a leaky sink, and you know, 2 or 3 other things plus this. And so everything else was $500, and then this is the big question mark, and that's why I was like, I'm not even gonna guess, I'm gonna call.
Yeah.
So
And mold is always one of the most expensive ones to fix, unfortunately. But
I spent $45,000 when I had mine done,
you did? Wow.
because I just did what the insurance company told me to do, and they called Service Master in there, and they ripped up a bunch of crap, and it was about this much mold, and then
That's crazy.
yeah, we would have called you guys first. We called you guys after all that, and then it came back because we had a bunch of, you know, cardboard boxes stored in the basement.
Oh, so the mold came back?
It was different mold. I mean, the one mold was from the washing machine leaking, and so we got a really intense spot.
Mm-hmm.
Then a year later, our dogs, you know, we had 2 puppies, and they were sloppy, and they got the baseboards, and so we got a different mold in a different area. And then at the same time, we realized that, you know, just the humidity was too high in the house. It was running, I don't know, 70 or something.
That's very high.
Yeah, and we had a bunch of cardboard boxes, and so after we, that's about when we called you guys, because we had it treated by a different company, and then we called them, we said, we're having the same problem again. They're like, well, we can get to you in 2 weeks or something. I'm like, my wife's like, there's no freaking way I can live with this. And then we called you guys, and you came out, and then I started using you.
Awesome. Well, we're happy you went with us in the first place, and you keep, you know, using us for all your homes.
I'm never gonna have to call you from my own house.
I know, right? That's the hope.
That was such a, man, it was horrible.
I tell
sold
her-
that house, and I'm in a little spec house now while we build a brand new one, so she doesn't ever have to have mold again, but,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah, I mean, I always like to tell our clients they're our lifelong customers, but I hope they never have to use our services again just for their sake. But we're always there in case there's mold.
Yeah, and that was kind of a big deal when we went to the other one you treated. You know, they were like, okay, is there a warranty on this? And we're like, yep, lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, I'll get you a quote as soon as I can. That way you can have it in your hands and, you know, present it to your clients. But yeah, you can just kind of give them an estimated range.
I'm not talking numbers so I can get it over to them.
Okay, that's
I learned that a long time ago. Because if I say, well, it should be about between 2,900 and 3,400, and then it comes in at 35, they're gonna freak out.
for sure.
So, but just do what you have to do, and I'll get with them tomorrow and
Okay.
let them know what it is, and we'll do the best we can do.
Yeah, and the sooner you get back to me, the sooner we can get you guys scheduled if they want to get it done as soon as possible.
Okay.
You know, if it takes you a while, obviously you might get pushed back further. I know it's probably not super much of a time crunch, but yeah, couple
I think
days.
We're trying to close by the end of the month, so that gives us a little over 2 weeks. So they may want to just go ahead and get it done next week if they approve it.
Awesome. Well, any questions, Evan?
No, really, the realtor explained a lot of the good reasons why you should choose Enviro Decon over some of these larger water restoration and mold remediation companies.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, cost is obviously a factor, but even more so than that, while we can beat most costs of like the big companies, we can get to people sooner typically. We use better air purification treatments that are actually going to help people's air quality and make sure that they're staying healthy. And we just heard a lot of bad experiences from our clients who have gone with other companies in the past. So yeah, it's good to have people that have had a good experience with us and be able to use us. Yeah.